Hello dear student, welcome back to organizational behavior classes uh, and we are going to learn today with the chapter learning. So we were discussing about in learning in this particular chapter we have talked about meaning, defining learning, then we have talked about characteristics of learning, principles of learning, then also we have talked about theories of learning. Okay, in theories of learning, I have given four theories and we were discussing about those theories of learning, right? Let us see which are the theories we've already finished. So, we have already seen classical conditioning theory, correct? And operant conditioning theories. Okay, these two falls under the category of behavioral theories. Okay, behavioral theories. So these two cognitive learning and social learning theories falls under the cognitive learning theories. Okay. So in classical conditioning, what we have seen, which was proposed by Avan Gala, yeah, and we have discussed about the dog experiment. There is two elements which we have to remember in classical conditioning, that is stimulus and response. Right. In operating conditioning theory, we have seen the Skinner's box experiment with the rat inside the box. So there we have learned about behavior and consequences, right? Behavior and consequences, two things. In the first theory, classical conditioning, we have seen stimulus and response. Operant conditioning, behavior and consequences. So these two theories. What the psychologists felt that these two behavioral theories like classical conditioning and operant conditioning could not justify the learning process of a human being. It said that it is not only with the stimulus and response we say that the people will learn, the human being or any organisms will learn, or by having the behavior and the consequences out of that behavior, the people will not learn, right? So for that, the cognitive learning theories have come up. So let us see what these theories talk about. Okay. So first we will understand what is the cognition means. Okay. So cognition is something related to your mind, brain. Okay. So what cognition is? So cognition is any individual's how he think, what is his level of knowledge, what are his ideas, how he interpret the things, how he understand the things. The understanding is about himself or the surrounding where he is living, okay, which we call as an environment, right? So cognition defined as a person's idea, thoughts, knowledge, interpretation, understanding about himself and the environment. Okay, so when we are talking about the cognition, so we are talking about all these things. Okay, so let us understand the what is cognitive learning theory now. So I was talking about how behavioral approach theory has given a gap for the psychologists to research further about learning, right? So here we can see by two figures here. So in the behavioral approach, what they say, there will be a stimulus and there will be a response, right? So what happens in between, they have not given the answers for this. Okay, they have not conducted any research related to this. So they gives a gap to conduct for the more research, so that what cognitive approach theories are saying is there will be input from the environment, then by processing that input, behavior will be a response of learning. Okay, input from the environment, and uh, these inputs will be processed. Cognitive processing I'm saying here. Cognitive processing means it happens inside the brain of a human being or any organism in that matter. Okay, so any organisms, right? So they think, they use their brain. Okay, they process it. Okay, they process, they interpret, they analyze, right? They think, they use their level of knowledge, their learning, then the learning happens, right? So that learning will be depicted in the form of behavior, right? So this question mark will be replaced by this box which says that cognitive processing. So the input will be processed by brain, then the learning will result in the behavior. So cognitive learning theory is talk about understanding how human mind works. Okay, so it is all about mind. Okay, so while people are learning how their mind, their brain is helping them to learn by processing, right? Then this theory focuses on like how this internal processing, this input what we are saying, that is information. Okay, so in this here, in the box what we are saying input, that is any kind of information which is acquired by any individual. Okay, so after acquiring that information, that information will be processed in your brain. Okay, so this what here given as internal processing information. So this internal processing information device is in human body, that is brain. Okay, how RAM is there in computer. Similarly, the internal processing body is in the human body is brain. Okay, so when the information that is input comes to the brain or your mind, will process that information. Okay, after processing that information only, that information will be given a meaning, then the learning will happen. Okay, so this theory is based on the idea that people first process whatever the information they are seeing, whatever they are receiving, they'll not just react to it. Okay, first they process it. Okay, then they learn out of it. So they'll not simply like how dog was salivating after seeing the meat. It is not the complete learning. Okay, so when the people receive any information or get influenced by any environmental things, the first what they do after receiving, they process that information. Okay, then they give the meaning to that information, then the learning will happen. Okay, that learning will depicted in the behavior of that particular individual. Okay, so this is how the processing will happen, like how we are saying the information is processed, right? So how this learning, cognitive learning process will happen. So what we do whenever there is anything or a information is there, what it happens, so we try to pay attention. Okay, whatever the in perception we have seen that according to the size, shape, color, background, experience, novelty, these are all many factors, right? Where we pay the attention. So when we pay the attention, then what we do, we observe. Okay, so we pay the attention to a particular thing, then we observe that thing for a while, right? It may be any interval of time, maybe 1 second to 1 hour to 1 day, right? So we observe it. Then after observing, according to our perception, okay, we interpret it. According to our perception, we interpret. Like it is interpretation is deeper level of understanding, right? Organizing. We compare it to something else, and we construct a relationship between any other thing. uh, Totally we analyze it, right? Then what we do, we organize. Correct. So how we organize the information as a process wise. First what we see, after that what sequence we are seeing again, which is the next step. So we organize in the our brain. Then what we do, whatever we are organized, we again memorize, right? After memorizing, we uh, categorized it into which category this whatever I have now memorized the thing, which category it will fall under. So after categorizing that information, we formulate a generalization that this is the what we have learned from this. Okay, so that will become the behavior. This is how much these are the steps. Okay, these are something similar to Bloom's taxonomy, which is a cognitive learning theory, one of the cognitive learning theory. Let us not get too much into psychology and will not learn about all these things at this undergraduate level. It is not required, I guess. So that's why I have given a generalized cognitive learning process, and I'm not giving any researchers learning cognitive learning theories here. Okay, so this is the cognitive learning process happens. So cognitive learning is about processing the information through by using the your brain. Okay, so what are those things? So those things are ideas, thoughts, knowledge, interpretation, okay, and level of understanding, right? Then this cognitive learning theory, how it is applicable in organization, which is very important, right? OB and cognitive learning theory. So we have to give a training, right? To say there are two categories of trainees, uh, new hires and senior managers. How this will differentiate? Okay, when we are training any HR department or a L&D department, learning and development department, training to new hires, so who are into supporting the customers. Okay, so for them it's likely that remembering, understanding, apply the information uh, provided is sufficient. For them it is like how to interact with the customer, okay, how to make them to buy your product, okay, how to influence them to in the purchasing of product, and how to get succeed in that deal. So that kind of how to communicate, how to posture, gestures. So all these things, what we do, we train them, okay, so that they can remember those things. Okay, they understand those things and they apply it, whatever we teach. But when you're training to a senior manager, okay, or a team lead, okay, they are already have experience in your organization, so you're not training them to sell a product at the customer's end, right? They are not at the customers servicing at the customer's end. They are like they are into critical thinking activities, like they have to plan, they have to organize. Okay, so for this, the level of cognitive learning they need is, what level of cognitive learning they need? They have to understand deeper uh, activities, like deeper critical activities that may help the planning and execution of that any kind of planning and execution of any kind of strategies. Okay, so maybe a financial decisions, human related decisions, okay, uh, some kind of important decision makings. Uh, so these all the training which are given to them, okay, about critically thinking, how to strategize it, how to make long term thinking. So this kind of things we make them to learn about. So this example shows that, in the training example shows that, so the level of thought process, the level of understanding of a new hiree, and the level of understanding and the requirement of a senior manager or a team lead is different. So when we are training these two different categories of people, we have to train according to their level of perception, according to their level of interpretation. Okay, uh, this is all about learning cognitive learning theory. I hope everybody understood it. Thank you for listening to me. Uh, Take care.